Happiness is not a goal, but a byproduct of life well lived. It's determined not by things happening around us, but it's realized through things happening inside us. At the end, what matters is not the first, but the last chapter of our life, which shows how well we ran the race. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Dr. Tapaswini's Corner. Today's focus is on oral cancer, a disease primarily caused by an individual's habit and addiction. To discuss in depth about this cancer, we have with us our expert and special guest, Dr. Jyoti Dabolkar. Trained at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, New York, you are amongst the first few female head and neck cancer surgeons from India. After having retired as the chairman of the Department of ENT and Head and Neck at the KM Hospital, Mumbai, you are currently rendering your services to the Breach Candy, Sir H.N. Reliance and Kumbhala Hospitals, Mumbai. You've served as the secretary and the president of an esteemed organization, the Foundation of Head and Neck Oncologists of India. As the chief editor and founder of the Journal of Head and Neck Physicians and Surgeons, writing research papers have been your forte, with more than 130 publications in national and international journals. For your outstanding contribution to this specialty, you have been felicitated with the Women Achiever Award by our ex-Vice President, Sri Hamid Ansari. Welcome, Dr. Jyoti, to the program, and it's indeed a pleasure and a joy to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
So, if we look at oral cavity cancers, it shows a varying incidence worldwide. I think it has something to do with the environmental and the cultural practices. So, what does the world statistics read on oral cancers?
Head and neck cancer is the sixth common cancer in the world.
Right.
And India is the second in this number. And the incidence of 2020, which has been just published by Globocon, says that the 19.3 million new cases are detected, out of which 58.3% are in Central Asia, which is comprised of Sri Lanka, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. The next in the line is the Europe, which is 22.8%. Then America, which is about 21%, and the remaining 14% is worldwide incidence. So if you see this, Central Asia, then Europe, then America, and then the rest of the world.
So India seems to be having very high rates of oral cavity cancers. So is this incidence rising in our country?
Yes. This disease was the disease of the 6th and 7th decade. But now what we are saying is that India is the world highest cancer about the lifestyle disease.
Right. I fully agree with you, madam. Yeah. But then if we talk about oral cancers in particular, how would we list predisposing factors? As we said, tobacco.
So these predisposing factors are many.
Right.
Basically it is tobacco in all forms. That means smoke tobacco, smokeless tobacco, snuff, cigars, even hookah, then exposure to the even a passive smoker. That means somebody else is smoking and you are getting this smoke. Even those patients are at the risk of cancer. Then basically pan or betel quid, which is like if they mix tobacco with a lime and katha, and then have. Then, as I mentioned, diet which is deficient in antioxidants, which is fruits and vegetables, HPV, which is one of the virus, human papilloma virus, which is on rise, familial history, like if your ancestor or your family member, especially father or forefathers, then you are at risk. Dental health, if your dental health is poor, that means you have got a ragged teeth and they are hurting your tongue or the buccal mucosa, and you can be at a risk of pre-malignant or malignant lesions. Some attribution to the mouth washes, because If you are using it too much, then also it is not good. Indians are lucky to be protected by dark melanin in our skin, but white skin people, if they are exposed to the sun, probably they can get skin cancer. So these are the different
Right.
reasons for the cancers.
Okay. Earlier, we used to see these cancers in the elderly age group. Lately, do we see it in the younger population? If yes, then why?
As I mentioned, that this was a disease of 6th and 7th decade.
Right.
Now we are seeing it 35 and 40 is also suffering from this.
Correct.
And when you take the detailed history, it all points towards a poor lifestyle, stress, alcoholism, smoking, poor diet, all that. So if your life is now affected because of this poor lifestyle,
Okay.
your genetic mutation is happening early.
Right.
Those genetic mutation which was happening in the previous group was happening because of the aging process. Now here you are prematurely aging, I would say, and it is happening. And you will be surprised to hear this, that even school going children, I have got a young child of 12 years suffering from severe tongue cancer where he cannot even move his tongue. And when we had screening programs for the school, we have found the pouches of this pan parag and gutka in their pockets.
So early initiation has been one of the reasons.
Yes.
But then we often hear in our clinics, patients come and tell us that I have just consumed for 3 years and there's XYZ who is consumed for 10, 15 years and still he doesn't have cancer. So does this have some induction period? What are we going to tell our listeners?
There is a definitely induction period and probably good genetic profile, probably are protected to some extent. Okay. And those who have got a poor genetic profile can get as early as 1.5 years also. What I would say to the patients is that whether you have it for 1 year or 10 years is not the question. The moment you start this, you are at a higher risk of getting a cancer than somebody who doesn't do it. Don't look at some factors where somebody is doing it for 30 years and not got a cancer. Probably they have better genes than you have. But the moment you start abusing these substances, you are at a very high risk of developing the cancer.
Yeah, I think this message should go strongly across. So, what are the signs and symptoms which every individual should be aware of? Right?
Any ulcer which is not healing, if there is something which is hurting, don't neglect it, that it must be a deficiency ulcer. If it doesn't get all right in 7 days, please see your doctor. The third thing is bleeding from the mouth. It is very unusual. Sometimes inflamed gums can give you bleeding, but don't say it must be because of something benign. If any ulcer which is bleeding or bleeding on touch, you must see the doctor. If your mouth is having some tumor which giving you only the pain in the ear, it is sinister and you must not neglect this. Any lump in your neck and also something in the mouth goes very much in favor of something sinister, because probably that cancer has already gone into the lymph nodes and giving you a node there. That node may or may not pain. You must see a doctor.
When we tell our patient that they should see a doctor, so who is the right person that they should go to?
A consultant who is going to examine you with a good light, with palpating your lesion, palpating your neck, taking your history in details, should be the ideal person. Now, this could be ENT surgeon or an onco-surgeon. Yeah. So my personal feeling is I'm not demeaning my colleagues in general practice, but they should always be up to the mark in their knowledge to say that this is beyond my cure and you must see a consultant as early as possible. Correct. Even that answer will make a delay in the diagnosis shorter, or there will not be any delay.
Absolutely. So the key is always early diagnosis and early treatment.
It is our onus also, and that is what our association has done. We have developed an app that the consultant can take the picture of the lesion, he can forward it to the expert panel. The expert panel will immediately tell him what to do next. But I personally feel educating this healthcare workers who go to home visits for antenatal checkups or malaria, for whatever, if our association takes a special initiative to train these health workers to do a torch examination or examination with a torch also, probably suspicious lesions can be diagnosed. It's a
Right.
huge effort, but doable. I would say doable.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Often patients will come and ask us that they have some white patch, red patch. Do they need to worry? How do we answer them?
They are warning signals actually. They are called leukoplakias and erythroplakia. Erythro means red, leuko means white. Leukoplakia and erythroplakia. Between the two, the erythroplakia is more sinister, more dangerous. Now, I wouldn't say that they are cancer. They are called pre-malignant conditions or pre-malignant diseases. Now, they will, over a period of time, within say more than 5 years hence, can convert into malignancy. And this conversion rate is significant, 10.9% conversion rate to malignancy. So these are the garden varieties of conditions where we can intervene early and educate the patients to completely cease the smoking and alcohol. Probably give a dietary advice to include more of antioxidants, reduce the stress, reduce the weight, and also refrain completely from the offending agents. Maybe their teeth can be examined and attended to. So if all the predisposing factors are taken care of and patient is made aware that you are in having a pre-malignant condition and it is can convert into malignancy and keep them under good follow-up, probably we have achieved a lot. And these are the stages where we should be attacking our attention to, because this is the stage where we can reverse the condition back to normal. Correct. Rather than progressively going worse. One most important condition is submucous fibrosis. Now, when they start using these agents, consuming agents, they develop this submucous fibrosis, which is only geographically known as a tropical disease. And all these four South Asian countries which we mentioned, it is like used like anything. So they develop this submucous fibrosis. So if we intervene early when the fibrosis is just setting in, probably we will avoid developing into cancer and keep them under good follow-up.
So if we look at the oral cavities, it's got so many subsides. We look at the lip, we look at the tongue, we look at the gum, we look at the jaw. So cancers originating from these different anatomical sites of the oral cavity, do they behave similarly or they are biologically very different?
Now, one clinical observation is that the tongue will behave differently than buccal mucosa. And that one reason which comes to our mind is the tongue is a mobile structure with a muscular structure and also very rich in lymphatics. So the tongue is likely to spread faster through the lymph nodes, where the prognosis of getting cured drops straight away to 50% once it goes to the lymph nodes. Correct. And because being a mobile structure, the local spread is also faster. As against the buccal mucosa, which is relatively not so vascular, it has and the lymph node drainage of the lymph node is only when it involves other structures of the oral cavity. So this is a clinical observation. But lately there have been studies, and one important study is a genetic background, and the X-linked inhibitor of the apoptosis gene, which is called ZIAP gene, is found to be associated with floor of mouth cancer as against the tongue cancer. And if you have got this gene expression, overexpression, then you are likely to develop the floor of mouth cancer, and they have a poor prognosis whatever you may do. So this is one example where the gene study was done, why floor of mouth cancers behaves little badly. So similarly, if we have down the road many genetic studies, but there's a definite link between genetics and molecular level. There's some dissimilarity, and that is the reason why every site behaves differently. So one day maybe we will reach there and find out different genes responsible for different oral cavity sites, and then give a treatment accordingly.
Yes. So now the million-dollar question, how treatable are these oral cancers?
So if you are asking about the cure rates are good if it is early cancer. The cure rate for early oral cancer is is as good as 70%, maybe 80% in some of the centers. Early cancer has a better cure rates. Early cancers are easy to treat. They have a less toxicity because the radiotherapy may not be required. The disfigurement part and the function is better taken care of by better reconstructive measures, and
Correct.
your life could be back to normal. But once it is late cancer, and as I mentioned, once they go into the lymph node, which is very predominant in oral cancer, the cure rate drops, completely to 50%. But
Right.
late cancer is a different ball game
Story.
because they require more extensive surgeries and requires additional radiotherapy, which has its own toxicity because it
Correct.
kills the cancer cells, but it also affects the normal tissue. And that's why radiotherapy also has its own complications. But again, I will not be pessimist because radiotherapy has also advanced so much that we have IGRT, IMRT, which is so much localized treatment to the cancer area, sparing the normal areas so that the
Correct.
toxicity comes down and the side effects are reduced. So
Right.
even there is a tremendous development to reduce the toxicity and improve the quality of life of our patient. The
Right.
cure rate drops to 50%. So they are curable, and that is the reason why our efforts should be early diagnosis. It's a paradox. Actually, in India, oral cavity examination is available to our self-examination and very easy accessible to examination with the light.
Right.
However, we are getting them in a very late stage.
Exactly.
It is poor education, fear, not having a facility, some delay by the primary physician of being not able to detect that it could be cancer and refer. There are many factors. But it's a paradox because if they come in a stage 3 and stage 4, not only the surgery becomes more complex because you have to have a reconstruction, you have to radiation, you have to maybe add chemo, so that cost of the treatment increases. And after doing everything, the cure rates are reduced. But the sad part is that the cure rates, even in last 2 decades or 3 decades, almost remain at the same level.
Okay.
Though with the advancement in our quality of life, because we have a better
Right.
reconstruction, better physio, better radiation techniques, better chemotherapy agents, the quality of life, that is complications, are significantly reduced. Patient can go back to work, but our cure rates because of the late presentation has remained almost at the same level.
But what I understand is, if we talk about surgical resection of oral cancers, what people fear is, one is disfigurement. Second is they probably may not be able to swallow, speak the way they would have been. So that's really impacting their social life, their quality of life. So what would you comment? Have we improved over the years? Has our surgical advancements made some difference?
Yes, it was quite disfiguring. I have seen it myself in my early years, and I was very, very concerned. Then in 87, we got a pec myocutaneous flap, which is coming from the chest and reconstructing. It was a workhorse, which definitely helped us to give some similarity and some this thing. But now, from 90s, 94, 95, we have a microvascular reconstruction. You can take 2 flaps from 2 different parts of the body and take with a intact blood supply and reconstruct your defects, and the outcomes are so good. I mean, I am so happy that this has happened to our patients and to us to reconstruct this way. So I definitely agree with you that there is a tremendous improvement in reconstruction of these defects and this after you remove the cancers. Apart from this, you said about dysphagia, speech, swallowing. Again, cancer surgeons are realizing the need for speech and swallowing centers along with them. We have amazing speech therapists. They can take care of these patients. So the rehab program of a good center is not only to do surgery and radiation. We don't know their survival and late cancers, but at least what is in our hand is to improve their lifestyle, improve their quality of life.
Absolutely.
Eating, swallowing, speaking.
Right. The other is radiation, the role of radiation and chemotherapy. Do all patients require an adjuvant treatment after surgery or before surgery?
Early cancers, that is stage 1 and stage 2, may not require radiotherapy and chemotherapy. Very
Okay.
sparingly few where one node has extracapsular spread and now we have to add chemo radio. That's very rare, but yes, it is not required. Stage 3 and stage 4 by design, by default, require radiotherapy.
Yes.
And
Correct.
those who have got two factors where node has extracapsular spread and there is a positive margin, the outcomes of these patients by adding the chemotherapy has improved. But otherwise, role of chemotherapy in a routine setting is not there. I feel that this dictum or this should not be misused, because you add chemo, it will improve. No, it doesn't. It add the comorbidity to the patient. It is toxic. So this cannot be loosely, even if the patient is asking, doctor, you are not adding chemotherapy to me, then you should be able to answer that no, you are not a candidate for chemotherapy. The chemotherapy candidates are only these two groups, and your radiotherapy, which is a definite therapy, is been given to you. So it is our responsibility to tell them no for chemo in every situation.
So, all treatment done, everything done. The next question, which always keeps haunting the minds of our patients: will this cancer ever come back? Even after a radical treatment, why does the disease come back or does it fail?
There are definite answers and there are no answers. As I mentioned, we are not studying the genetics of every patient.
Right.
Are they having some bad genetic profiling, which is giving us like failure in some of the cases? And that is what is the personalized medicine. Probably you do the genetic mapping of all patients and then find out the defective genes and then design your treatment, and not the treatment which one fits all. Probably that era, if it comes in my lifetime, I'll be happy. But what I'm trying to say to you is that this is difficult to answer from why always. But if the patient he has not reduced his habits, if he has not stopped alcohol and tobacco, if he has not improved his lifestyle with good diet, and most importantly, if he has not kept his follow-up schedule with the doctor to regularly come for checkup so that early intervention of the recurrence or whatever can be done, in these patients we can fail. And again, if they are presented late to start with, they are likely to fail because they have advanced cancers and they behave badly. Luckily for oral cancers, the distant metastasis, which is very common with other cancers like breast, we see less of distant metastasis. Less, I wouldn't say. You may see 5 out of 100. So that is very negligible. So we are lucky in that way. But we fail primarily and we fail in the net.
Perfect. But that also gives us an idea that, and the message which should go to all our listeners is, all these cancer patients should be on a long-term surveillance. Because a lot of patients come under the impression that now that the treatment is over, everything is fine, they just don't need to come for any checkup. But a long-term surveillance is extremely important, whether early or late. But madam, as you said in the early part of our discussion, we had a lot of discussion on tobacco and its causes. What are the de-addiction protocols that we have, or how do we help our patients?
Yeah, so there are a lot of NGOs, I must say, has come forward for this de-addiction. And what they do is that, if the patient is ready for de-addiction and whatever help he needs, alcohol, tobacco, counseling, meeting the group who has already left and become a winner, the hypnotherapy, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, there's so many techniques, counseling, all these are being offered almost at no cost. They are kept in-house in the center if they're really bad to watch for the withdrawal symptoms. Till they leave the habit, they are monitored. I think it's a tremendous effort. Whatever help required from social workers, doctors is given to them. And so many of them have succeeded at living this habit successfully.
Wow. Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, we are coming to the end of this program. But what is the final message that you would like to give our listeners?
Yeah, so to the listener also that you have heard that what are the predisposing factors, You being an educated group of people probably are having understand this whole discussion well. Please, please, please reduce your stress, improve your lifestyle, walk and exercise, sleep well, open air, improve your breathing, improve your posture, do some sorts of meditation, which is just watching your breath, and have a social bonding. Don't have a stress take over your life so that you compromise at any level, like smoking, alcohol, which are very temporary factors to give you some relief from the stress, but actually it has a very negative impact, because it is very
Right.
easy to take a peg and forget your worries, but without knowing that what it can do to your body.
Yes.
To the doctors and physicians, I feel that it is our responsibility to give our time, having some free checkup camps by some NGOs or by some head and neck organization, where you once in 3 months you can screen the population for these cancers and shortlist those who have got some alarming signs to refer to the center or take the further step. A message to everyone, like de-addiction, stopping this gutka sell is a government policy. No point making a government policy and not implementing it. So similarly, the sale of these products, especially near the school area, should be completely prohibited.
Right.
Then comes the
Correct.
personal level, the advertisements of these things, that it is dangerous to consume these things. Giving lectures like what I do to Rotaries and Lions for lifestyle. What are the lifestyle diseases? Up till now, it was a contagious diseases which were killing. And today, it is the lifestyle disease like heart disease, stroke, cancer, which is another extreme of lifestyle disease, is the killer. It is number one killer of the disease, of the mankind, which is to some extent preventable, because this substance should not be utilized by you. So it is in our hand personally to take charge of our lives, our dear ones, if they are already consuming, and then extend this help to the neighbors, or and then the society at large. And as a physician, we have a, like on the 8th of March, I had a camp on Women's Day. Originally, we were to have oral cancer and breast cancer, but because of the increasing cases of COVID, we have not done the head and neck cancer, which we are going to do it in another 1 or 2 months' time. But we had a breast cancer, and you'll be shocked that the first patient we saw was a lady with such a big lesion, tolerating this problem, telling me that I cannot take 15 days leave. My madam told me to take 15 days leave. I cannot take 15 days leave because what will I eat and what will I feed my family? And that's why I'm neglecting. I had tears in my eyes. So, these checkup camps by the NGOs and by like organizations working for cancer will go a long way to detect them and to guide them. More than detecting pre-malignant lesions, we will be able to guide them to stop the habits, basically.
Absolutely.
So
So
that is my
wonderfully,
message.
so wonderfully said, ma'am. What a lovely message. And the talk was very informative. I'm sure the listeners would take a lot of information and cues from today's talk.
I made it scientific too, for them to understand the genetic profiling and genetic the whole genetic gets haywire if your lifestyle is not good, which is the area where the doctors are doing maximum research to find
Right.
out your gene profiling,
Yes.
which is expensive. To do gene profiling of every patient of cancer walking in a government hospital, it is not easy. Private hospitals have started doing it, but in a small numbers. So till we reach that stage, let's take care of our genetics, let's take care of our life, and let's take care of our surrounding people and our family, and be more aware that these habits are bad. That will be my message.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Jyoti. And thank
I
you all our
enjoyed it.
listeners. Yeah. So life on earth is temporary. Hence, no problem of ours will be permanent. And we are never without solutions to them. But three ingredients that we have for a long and healthy life are to live life with attention but without worry, use time in a worthwhile way, and keep thoughts pure and positive. When we wake up every morning, our life should be like a canvas waiting to be painted. Thank you so much, Dr. Jyoti. Thank you once
Thank
again
you.
to all the listeners. See you next week in another episode. Till then, goodbye.